Welcome. This presentation is prepared by Father Arul, SVD, a Divine Word missionary based in Riverside, California. Today, we are exploring Magnifica Humanitas, a 2026 encyclical letter by Pope Leo XIV. Right now, artificial intelligence is optimizing everything, from our global supply chains to our personal schedules. But this push for total efficiency is generating a deep, collective unease. We are operating under a technocratic paradigm, a mindset that values profit, speed, and control above all else, frequently reducing human beings to easily process data points. The encyclical frames this moment as a choice between two ancient metaphors. We can either construct a digital Tower of Babel, where technology isolates us and homogenizes our diverse cultures in a quest for dominance, or we can choose the path of Nehemiah, rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, using our shared responsibility to create a community where everyone plays a distinct, valued role. To navigate this, the Church relies on Catholic social teaching, a living tradition that has evolved to meet the challenges of every major societal shift since the late 19th century. When the Industrial Revolution triggered massive economic upheaval, Pope Leo XIII established the moral blueprint we still use to protect human dignity today. Pope Leo XIV's framework applies these ancient principles to our digital crisis. By emphasizing the person over the machine, we can actively disarm digital monopolies and ensure that technological growth preserves human diversity rather than erasing it. At a structural level, algorithms evaluate us based on efficiency. They scrape our past behavior, score our productivity, and sort us into categories of risk and reward. By design, these systems measure our worth strictly by our measurable output. The principle of ontological dignity stands in direct opposition to this. It states that every person has an infinite, inherent worth simply because they exist. This value is given by God. It cannot be earned by high performance, and it certainly cannot be quantified in a database. Whenever human beings are reduced to mere functional output or evaluated by mechanical metrics, the results are catastrophic. History shows us repeatedly that discarding the intrinsic value of the individual leads directly to violence, fragmentation, and systemic abuse. Therefore, when opaque AI systems are handed the authority to dictate life-altering decisions, like who gets a loan, who receives medical care, or who the justice system targets, without transparent human accountability, they inherently violate our ontological dignity. This brings us to a second foundational concept, the universal destination of goods. Traditionally, this principle reminds us that the Earth's fundamental resources, soil, water, and air, are meant to sustain the entire human family. If we look at this map, we can see how that principle must expand in the modern era. Those millions of data points represent a new form of property, our collective digital infrastructure, global data, and algorithms. Notice where all that information goes. A handful of transnational tech giants are harvesting this global knowledge and locking it away. By monopolizing these resources, they concentrate enormous wealth and power, actively excluding the most vulnerable from the benefits of the AI revolution. Because data is the product of our collective interactions, behaviors, and knowledge, it belongs to the same moral category as air or water. If the wealth of nations now depends on these digital resources, then the principle of the common good dictates that they must be governed as shared public assets rather than private monopolies. Governing that public good requires the principle of subsidiarity. This means decisions should be made at the most local level possible. Mega corporations should not dictate the digital environments, access rules, and economic opportunities of local communities from the top down. The physical costs of the cloud are often paid by the communities least involved in its development. Slating a single AI model can drain millions of gallons of local fresh water and strain power grids, leaving residents to manage the environmental fallout of a system they didn't design. There is also a hidden human cost. Behind the illusion of fully automated intelligence is an army of invisible, often marginalized workers. They spend countless hours labeling data, moderating traumatic content, and sustaining the algorithms that power these platforms. Without careful governance, these unchecked systems simply recycle and amplify the existing biases of their creators. This results in algorithms that perpetuate prejudice and disproportionately penalize vulnerable populations. The principle of solidarity demands that we stop treating these physical and human costs as invisible externalities. We must recognize our shared connection to these workers and ecosystems and demand that grassroots communities have a direct voice and independent oversight in how AI is governed. This obsession with efficiency reaches a logical extreme when it seeks to bypass the biological constraints of being human. Often called transhumanism, this perspective views our physical limits and vulnerabilities not as part of our identity, but as engineering problems to be engineered away. Our limits are not bugs to be fixed. Within our finitude, suffering, and reliance on others, empathy, grace, and authentic connection actually occur. This leads to our final, necessary action. We must actively disarm artificial intelligence. This means stripping it of its hyper-competitive, armed mentality, where algorithms are weaponized for commercial dominance, and instead subjecting it to the standards of social justice. The true grandeur of humanity, our Magnifica Humanitas, will never be found in a machine's processing power. It is rooted entirely in our unique capacity for love, our ability to care for one another, and our communion with God. To explore these concepts further, please take a moment with your group to reflect on these 3 questions. First, how do you see AI impacting human dignity in your own community? Second, which principle of Catholic social teaching is most needed in the digital space today? And third, what practical actions can you take to promote solidarity and disarm technological monopolies in your daily life? Thank you very much for watching today.